And welcome back in GameDaySportsRadio.com on a Friday morning. Mike Bernard with us. Talk a little football and inside the numbers, a quick abbreviated college edition this morning. First of all, I want to thank Main Channel Brewing Company, founded in 2015, a local microbrewery with humble roots right there in Gunnersville and Albertville, Alabama. Bobby and Vicky Satterfield, along with Clay Smith, they believe in engaging in the local community and they strive to provide a unique experience for all who visit their tap rooms. They produce high quality and affordable beer for the growing craft beer community. If you can't make it down to Albertville or Gunnersville, Alabama, as some of our most of our listeners are spread across the United States, you can still have that great beer that they have. Mainchannelbrewing.com, and you can see down in the ticker their website's going to be listed throughout this segment. Again, Main Channel Brewing, quality beer for quality living. Well, Mike, man, we're just getting into the weekend and a lot of news going on out there. Uh, Seems like Jim Harbaugh is up to some old tricks again. What do you think about sending folks out to try to steal signals? I think that's overrated, to be honest with you.
Look, I don't have a problem with it in baseball or football, but the unwritten rules are you don't do it, but they're not in. I don't have an issue with it.
Yeah, the thing with the NCAA, they have a rule that you can't go scout people in person, which I think is ridiculous anyway, because they used to do it all the time. You had colleges that hired guys, and that's all they did. They scouted. That was their job, was to scout. But in football especially, by the time that you pick up a signal and you try to relay it back into the defense, the ball's already been snapped anyway. Again, I think it's much to do about nothing, but it's just funny. No matter where Harbaugh goes, there's controversy to follow.
Absolutely. He made a lot of big waves by taking his team, before NIL, taking his team over to Europe, and people complained about that, and that's part of the educational experience.
Exactly. Well, let's get into the educational experience for tomorrow. We've got four ranked versus ranked game. Number seven, Penn State at number three, Ohio State. This is the 12 noon Eastern kickoff on Fox. Buckeyes have six straight wins over the Lions, 10 of the last 11. Could this year be the year that James Franklin can finally say Penn State is an elite program? Well, he's 3-15 versus top 10 teams since he's arrived in State College. Me personally, I don't know if this is the year or not, because I've been really impressed with Ohio State quarterback Kyle McCord. Now, he's not CJ Stroud, but he's played well, and he and Marvin Harrison Jr. seem to have great chemistry together. But I think the key for this game is watch the defense. Penn State, number one, Ohio State, number seven in total defense. Lions number one in scoring defense, Buckeyes number three. Both of them are holding their opponents to less than 10 points per game. Obviously, they haven't played juggernaut schedules, but they're still holding people down. But not really a surprise that Rhyme Day squad is favored at home in this matchup.
Right, Coach. Penn State comes in, they've won six straight games. They covered all six, but you mentioned the schedule, it ranks 77th. So they haven't played a truly elite team. And you talked about Franklin's record. He is your classic bully. He runs the score up on the weak opponents, and then basically a colossal failure against the super elite teams. He's 3-12 against top 10 teams. I believe you said 3-15, so that goes
Mm-hmm.
back even further.
Further,
He's
yeah.
Yep, he's lost six straight to the Buckeyes, and he's just won one time out of nine tries against Ohio State. One thing that helps his case this week, Ohio State comes in limping. Their top three running backs are all hurt. I don't know which of those are going to play, if any. Their wide receiver has an injury. They have injuries in the defensive secondary as well. So with all those key players listed as day to day, and don't get me started on injury reports from NFL and college, because it has been an absolute mess this year
Yeah.
with all the disinformation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna have to wait and see if I even have a play on this game. Let me take a look at the point spread. Ohio State's down to 4.5. So that's as low as you're ever going to see Ohio State as at home.
Right. Okay, third Saturday in October. That means Alabama, Tennessee. The number 17 Vols visit the number 11 Tide. That is the 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central kickoff on CBS. Last year, the Vols broke a 15-year Bama win streak on won 52-49 on a walk-off field goal. I think it was a walk-off, wasn't it? No, it was the last, but it was right there at the end of the game.
Alabama should have had the walk-off field goal attempt, but they mismanaged the clock.
And no doubt. The last time that Bama lost in consecutive years to the same opponent back in 2014 and 15, and that was to Hugh Freeze and Ole Miss. Now, for people outside of Alabama and Tennessee, they may not realize that this is one of the fiercest rivalries in all of college football. Go back to the days of when Coach Bryant was at Alabama. You know, he didn't like Auburn. He wanted to beat Auburn. He wanted to beat everyone. But the game that he circled every year was Tennessee, because when he was playing at Alabama, Alabama didn't play Auburn. They were on that 40-something year hiatus. Tennessee was their main rival, and so that was a game that Coach Bryant put a lot of emphasis on. It's the victory cigar game, so the fans get involved in it. New quarterbacks this year for both teams. And if you perform in this game, it can make you a legend for life. So Jalen Milroe or Joe Milton for the Vols, who's going to step up? But the Tide is favored by almost 10 in Tuscaloosa.
It's down to 8 or 8.5. So,
okay.
You know, the money came in on Tennessee. It's been that way for a couple of days. A couple of days now. Look, both teams come in power rated much lower than last year's team. What a game that was last year. But when you go from Hendon Hooker and Superman to what we have today, it's not a knock on these kids. It's just they're not close. Tennessee, they're on the road for only the second time this year. The first time they were a 4.5-point favorite down in Gainesville. They got beat by 2 touchdowns. So this is another test. Alabama controls their own destiny. Tennessee's looking for their first win in Tuscaloosa since 2003, so that was a former team. The prior to this season, Alabama was much like Ohio State, some of their trends. Prior to this year, Alabama was favored by less than 10 points at home one time in 8 years. This year, they played 4 home games. They've been favored by less than 10 points in 3 of those 4 home games. In one of those games, they lost to Texas. So basically, odds makers, sports bettors, they do not respect Alabama, this year's version at least.
Right. 7:30 prime time on ABC, number 16 Duke at number 4 Florida State. Listen, the Blue Devils have played well. They're sitting at 5-1. Only lost to Notre Dame in a game that really should have won, in my opinion. You gave up a 98-yard drive at the end of the game. And let them convert on a 3rd and 17, I believe it was, to keep that drive going. Mike Norvell, hats off to him. He has changed the culture down in Tallahassee. The Seminoles are rolling, winners of 12 straight. Quarterback Jordan Travis got a little banged up last week, but he should be fine. Not many folks are giving the Blue Devils a chance in this one. Florida State favored by more than a couple of touchdowns last time I checked.
That's right, Coach. Duke, look, they started the year with that win over Clemson. It was not a fluke. But quarterback Riley Leonard, he's hurt. Will he play? Will he be effective? The other quarterback you mentioned was Travis for Florida State. He did injure his hand, but it seems like he's going to be ready to go. The Noles offense, they're putting up monster numbers this year. But this Duke defense, they're very undervalued, at least in my market. They gave up 21 in that loss to Notre Dame. And again, that was a fluky loss. Not only did they also didn't cover that game, which was a bad beat if you had Duke. But their other 5 contests, their defense allowed 3, 14, 7, 7, and 7. So that's got to be all-time great numbers for a Duke defense. They're for real. If Leonard can give it a go, I'd lean to Duke plus the points here.
Prime time on Fox, 8 p.m. Eastern time kick. Number 14, Utah at number 18, USC. This is a make-or-break season game for both these clubs. The winner actually stays in the playoff hunt, but the loser is out. Utah 5-1, only loss is in conference to now number 12 Oregon State. Utes defense, as usual, they carried the banner for this team, giving up 211 yards per game and a little under 12 points per game. Trojans 4-0 in the Pac-12, 6-1 overall. Lost to Notre Dame 48-20 last week in South Bend. Caleb Williams, he's an athletic phenomenon, but overall, this team has looked very pedestrian at times. But still, the Trojans are a favorite in the Coliseum on Saturday night.
They are favored. This game has lost its marquee status, so to speak. But these teams are going to have a lot to do with, a lot to say, rather, with who comes out of the Pac-12, who goes in possibly to the playoff. The Utes, they've beaten USC 3 straight times. 2 of them were resounding victories, including 47-24 in the Pac-12 title game last year. And, Coach, speaking of injuries and disinformation and misinformation, quarterback Cam Rising for Utah, he's been listed as probable or questionable every week.
Yeah.
And the word is really his family doesn't want him to play at all this year, which if you look at this quarterback class, I don't know what they're thinking, because he's not going to be one of the top draft choices as far as at that position.
Right.
SC, Coach, we know they can score, right? They can't stop anyone. The last 3 weeks, they've given up 48, 41, 41. I've got a small lean to the over here, which I usually play under in Utah games. But as for the overall picture of the Pac-12, I think it's very likely they're going to eat their own. They're going to cannibalize themselves. They're going to have a 2-loss champion, and they won't have anyone in the playoff. And frankly, a lot of people, even in my world, think that Pac-12 is the best conference.
I was going to say, this year is one of those years, and it's strange because it's the last year of the Pac-12 as we know it anyway, is they're kind of, to use a term, they're kind of SECing themselves this year. Too many good teams right now.
Right. And, Coach, well, this is one thing. We'll talk about it on another show. But I really am looking forward to next year. I know we have half the season to go. But next year, when USC and UCLA and Oregon, they go over to the Big Ten, I want to see that high-powered offense, those high-powered offenses versus the absolutely atrocious offenses, but very good defenses of Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin.
All right, Mike, we appreciate your time this morning. And, of course, you'll be back on a little bit later this afternoon to talk some NFL. And then you and I will talk again on Monday morning, review what happened in the college games over the weekend.
Look forward to it, Coach. Have a great weekend.